Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Microsoft Flight Simulator, and today I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a different video. In my process of trying to complete the G1000 guide, which by the way, to set everyone's mind at ease, it is absolutely in production. It is going like crazy, and it's coming along very nicely. But in the process of working on it, I was working on the autopilot, and it got me thinking that there's a bunch of different ways to use the autopilot, and there are a bunch of different things that you can do prior to engaging the autopilot, prior to takeoff, prior to landing, that can help you to make things a bit easier. Also, one of the biggest tips that I can give you guys is get away from using the mouse as much as possible. And so today I'm going to sort of help you guys set some of that up. What I'm using is I'm going to be using my Thrustmaster Warthog today. Now, normally I fly with the Bravo and the Alpha Honeycomb flight controls, but in the interest of demonstrating this, I wanted to do it with the HOTAS, showing that you don't have to have the yoke and the throttle and all this different stuff. Any kind of simple stick and throttle will work. You don't need a ton of buttons. I think we need 11 or 12. So let me show you guys what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and jump into the controls. We're going to set up some controls that are going to make your autopilot life a bit easier, and then we'll start the aircraft up, do a quick trip around the block here, and just show you guys some things that I think will hopefully help maybe clear up some confusion with the autopilot that based on some of the questions that I've seen in comments and some forums and things like that. So let's jump into controls. Alright, so getting into the controls, there's a few things that you're going to want to have mapped. Alright, so we've only got assigned here. So let's do instruments, flight instruments, and autopilot. Flight control services, we don't need to worry about, that's just my axis. Okay. Take note of all of these, guys. You're going to want them. Okay. Airspeed bug, altitude bug, heading bug, VSI bug. Autopilot altitude hold, approach hold, flight level change, heading hold, autopilot master, nav1 hold, and nav2 if you've got the buttons for it, and autopilot VS hold. Okay. These are all going to be critical to what we're about to do. Okay, so get these mapped, and these are all just mapped on this. I haven't used any of my other controls. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Once you have all these mapped, let's go ahead and move on to the next section. And what these are going to do is these are going to keep your hands off of the mouse. Okay, so autopilot hold, just give you guys a breakdown. These are going to engage the master buttons. Okay, these are going to set the bug that we want to change. Okay, oh, and there is one more. You're also going to want these two. These are critical. Minus and plus. Okay, so again, let you guys run through those. Feel free to pause the screen. All right, let's go ahead and get back into the aircraft. All right, so real quick, I've just created a very simple flight plan from Tucson over to Ryan Field. As you can see, it's very close. It's only 11 miles away. All right, we have the GPS set as our nav source. Okay. Now, to talk about the controls for a second, the toggle autopilot hold, altitude hold, toggle heading hold, toggle vertical speed, that is these down here. Okay. Turn our flight directors on. And this you would turn on before you take off, so that's fine. Okay, but your autopilot master mode, see the autopilot there, that's why we bound that. Okay, you can disengage, re-engage the autopilot. And then the select heading bug, altitude bug, etc. That's going to be this, that's going to be this. Course, if you want to map that one as well, if you have the spot for it. Okay, and then your speed bug is going to be up here, and you guys are going to see all this in action here. Let me get some of the craziness off of the HUD, or not the HUD, the PFD. Why is that on? ADF. Why is the ADF on? There we go. All right, let's get the flight plan off the page. Yes, I get it. There's an alert and an advisory. There's nothing there. Calm down, computer. Okay, so those are the big ones that we're going to worry about for today. So at this point, let's go ahead and head out to the runway, and then we'll do a takeoff, and I'll show you guys some things that I like to do before I set my takeoff. Okay? Alright guys, so we are out on the runway. We're sitting at 29 right in Tucson, Arizona. We're actually about probably a quarter of the way down the runway. I didn't feel like taxiing all the way down it. Actually, we're about halfway down, so it's a good thing we're in a G36. And we're going to simulate a few things. So we're going to simulate that ATC clearance has set us to fly the runway heading up to 4,000 feet. After 4,000 feet, we can resume our normal navigation. Okay? Now we're going to pick a couple different ways to climb. We're going to pick one way to climb, excuse me. We're going to use the flight level change, which will set a specific speed to climb at. Okay? Not feet per minute. Don't confuse speed with feet per minute. Okay, you have feet per minute, which is I want to climb at 100 feet per minute, 1,000 feet per minute, whatever. And then you have speed, which is I want the aircraft to do whatever it needs to do to maintain, example, 120 knots throughout the climb. Okay, so let's go ahead and set some of this up using our new mappings. So first off, we want to set our heading. So I'm going to hit the heading master mode button that we've mapped. So when I say master mode, it's going to be any of these. And when I say bug, it's going to be these, okay? Because remember, that's how they were set. It was set altitude hold. So if I say, let's do that. Call it the hold. If I say hold, we're referring to these buttons over here. If I say bug, we're referring to over here. So I'm going to set first our altitude hold. You can see it taps up, and that's our current altitude in a solid hundreds of feet. Now I'm going to set the altitude bug to what ATC has given us. So I've tapped the altitude bug button, and now I'm going to use the plus button that we mapped to send it up to 4,000 feet. And if you do a quick double tap, you can typically get it to jump in thousands. Okay? Or just hold it. So we're going to go to 4,000 feet. Actually, let's call it 4,500. Okay? 4,500 feet. Alright? Now, I want to climb at 115 knots. Okay, let's pretend that's our best rate. I have no idea what is the G36. I haven't looked it up. Okay, so I'm going to hit my flight level change hold button. Oop, nope, that's vertical speed. There we go. So flight level change button, you can see it pops up at 95 knots. Okay, and actually I think it does it by 80 at default. I was messing around with it a minute ago. Alright, and so now I'm going to hit my flight level change bug and then use the plus button again to set it to 115 knots. Okay, and actually let's do like 118 knots. Alright, now we've also been told to fly the runway heading. Now you can either line yourself up with the runway as best center line as you can. We're a little off, but if we hit the heading hold button, you can see the heading bug automatically centers on the aircraft's current heading. Now 305, that's not right. I think it's 303 if we look at our chart. So this is the Tucson International chart, and this is the runway for 29er right. Actually, that's 11 left. Let's go at 29er right. Yep, 303 degrees is the runway heading. So now I'm going to hit my heading bug. And I'm going to hit the minus button, 2 degrees. And you can see that right here. Okay? So, we have our altitude. That's our target. We have our heading mode, which is armed. And we have our speed, airspeed hold that we want to climb at. Okay? Notice there's no AP here. That means the autopilot is currently disengaged, which is obviously what we want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off. Do I have the parking brake on? Probably. Yep. Alright, so let's just get her rolling. Not going to worry about flying pretty. Just trying to use it to demonstrate. Knots, 70, rotate, positive rate and indicating, gear up. And now from right here, I'm going to engage my autopilot. So you can see autopilot is active. Don't let go of the controls too fast. Make sure that the aircraft has control. And we're also going to bring our flaps up. So now we're flying on a heading of 303. The aircraft's pitching up and accelerating, and you can see the bug right there is our target airspeed bug. So once it reaches 118 knots, it will pitch up or nose down, depending on whatever it needs to do to maintain that altitude. You can see we're climbing at 1,300 feet per minute. Now we're sort of reaching our limits is what's happening here. And notice that because of that, the aircraft is slightly starting to pitch up and down. It's starting to fluctuate a little bit. When your target lights up here, your target altitude lights up, that indicates that we are 1,000 feet from our target altitude. And from here, we can go ahead and increase our altitude. So I'm going to hit the altitude bug, and then hit the plus button. Let's say we want to go to 5,500. And then once we reach 4,500 feet, we're going to hit our navigation button that we mapped. I'm going to set my speed down to the 115 knots. I think it's going to be easier for it to maintain. Alright, so there's 4,500 feet. So now I'm going to tap that navigation button. Oh, it's up here. And you can see that when I did that, GPS is now active. And now we're turning onto our course. We're no longer in heading mode. Still climbing at our best rate, as best as the aircraft can maintain. It's not going to be flawless. It's all based on altitude, how heavy the aircraft is, drag on the aircraft. Obviously a turn is going to increase the drag. More powerful aircraft can do that a bit easier, but... And then once we come out of the turn, start to stabilize. Now as we get within close enough to our altitude, the airspeed is going to increase because the climb is complete. When this is blinking, it means the climb is done. Notice that we're out of flight level change. We've now gone to altitude hold. And now the aircraft will reach its altitude and accelerate because of the throttle position. It's important to remember this system has no connection with the throttle. So now the last thing that we'll talk about is when to use vertical speed versus flight level change. Flight level change, again, as I described, is based on the airspeed. Vertical speed is based on feet per minute, okay? So I'm not going to touch the throttle, and I'm going to increase our altitude bug. So again, selecting the altitude bug, increasing us up to 6,500. And now I'm going to select vertical speed bug, or first vertical speed mode. So you can see we've gone to VS mode. Now the vertical speed bug, and increase 100 feet per minute, 200 feet per minute, 300 feet per minute. And this is going to directly affect the pitch. Okay, each time I tap it up, the pitch is going to get higher and higher and higher. Now what's going to happen here is we are going to get a pitch angle that, based on engine performance, and we're at max power right now. Left that, oop, my bad. Left that up on purpose, because what's going to happen is we're not going to be able to hit 1,100 feet per minute. Okay, it's shooting for it. And actually, excuse me, it is. Let's go higher than that. I didn't expect it to hit that. Let's go to, like, there you go, 6,500 feet per minute. Oh, we reached our altitude. Darn it. Set it to something ridiculous, so that way I can get through this with you guys. Back to vertical speed mode. There we go. Alright, there we go. Let's set it at 5,500 feet per minute. Okay, it's not going to happen. Okay, we're going to top out, and you're going to watch this get lower and lower and lower. Because basically what's going to happen is we're going to stall. The aircraft's trying to do something it doesn't have the power to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and kick that back down. Send that back to 500 feet per minute. And the aircraft can do that easily. Alright, but now let me show you how to descend. And the same thing works with descent. With descent, you have to be careful because you have to make sure you don't overspeed the aircraft. Okay, so if we were to go into a descent, let me set our altitude target. Set it down to 4,000. Let's go 3,500. There we go. Alright. And then going Going back to the vertical speed bug. This is in relation to how fast are we pointing the nose down based on how fast are we traveling. So if I pull the power off, you're going to watch the nose dip. Let's just pull the prop pitch out. As the aircraft slows down, this is going to get steeper and steeper. Add some flaps just to make it mad. There we go. There it goes. And then if we go to our vertical speed bug, increase that. Okay. Now, so hopefully you guys see the relationship with vertical speed. Vertical speed is based on how much power in a climb. How much power does the engine have? Can it reach the desired climb rate? Okay. And in descent, it's how fast is the aircraft going to determine how far the nose has to dip. Now the thing about vertical speed that you should be careful with is if you're going too fast, diving too fast, etc., you may either A, overfly your area, or B, descend too quickly. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and level it out. So I'm going to hit the altitude master hold. Okay. Let's go ahead and add our power back on. Get those flaps back up. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the descent rate as soon as the aircraft speeds up a bit. Let's do this. Just speeding up time. Alright, that's close enough. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is talk about flight level change in a descent. So if we set, again, our altitude, and let's set it lower, obviously. And we go to flight level change. Notice that we have it set to descend at 115 knots, but we're not descending. And we're never going to until we pull the throttle off. Okay, we have to slow the aircraft down to 115 knots or below in order for the aircraft to begin descending. Now, the cool thing is the aircraft does know its power setting. It knows that at this power setting, it's not going to reach it. But if I pull the power way off, as we get close to 115, the descent will begin. And there it goes. I put the pitch back in, and now it will adjust the nose angle. If we start to dive too fast and accelerate, it will pitch the nose up. If it goes too far nose up and the aircraft starts to slow down below 115 knots, it'll pitch the nose down. But it's going to maintain 115 knots, thereabouts, 1 or 2 knots off, all the way down to your target altitude. Well, that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to get out today, guys. Again, the same principle works with the approach mode, things like that. Having those buttons mapped to your HOTAS or joystick or whatever, or at least quick access to the keyboard, will make your lives much easier than trying to fight with the mouse. I hope this cleared up some differences between vertical speed and flight level change. It was a question that I saw down in the comments on one of the videos. It's an older one, but I never saw it before today. And then so as I was doing the guide, I just thought, hey, people might actually find this useful. So yes, that does delay the guide a little bit, but it will be out within the next 24 hours. So I hope you guys are looking forward to the G1000 guide, and then after that moving directly into the TBM 930 guide. We'll be going full steam on that one, and it will be just as in-depth as the A320 guide that I did. So questions, comments, as always, leave them down in the description below, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.